Mangwanani Mwalelepo Fukenjani Klekwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa. Good morning. Right back after the Easter. We certainly hope you enjoyed your break and that it was as safe as possible. We do still pass our condolences to the nation of Namibia on the passing of Governor Uwe Rika. This is Africa. Good morning. These are some of the stories we'll be looking at on this Tuesday. Hormuz disruptions drive fuel and food risks for Africa. Senegal cuts government travel as oil price surge strains public finances. Paul Biya, 93, appoints son as vice president after Cameroon restores the post. DR Congo agrees to receive U.S. deportees. Burkina Faso junta has rejected democracy and they plan to extend the term in which Traore will be in power. We're going to have a video of him in his own words with regards to that. And we're also going to be talking about William Ruto and the oil issues in Kenya as he vows a crackdown as Kenya fuel cartel probe triggers arrests and resignations. Keeping in mind, it is a Tuesday, which means Talent Gore is going to join us from Zimbabwe with the Zimbabwe Report. DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com, Network Media Hub, ntvafrica.my.na. That is Africa with a K is where you can always watch the show. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories after the break. In a world where politicians promise the moon and deliver potholes, where democracy sometimes arrives in camouflage and ballots often look like formalities, one show dares to laugh with Africa, at Africa, and sometimes for Africa. This is Second Take, your weekly dose of political satire with an African soul and a global edge. From coups disguised as press briefings to ministers moonwalking past accountability, we serve the real news with sharper writing. Each week we bring you the TikTok of the week because sometimes the revolution is vertical, and the heartwarming moment of the week to remind us that not everything is burning. We also sit down with the bold, the brilliant, and the brave, voices that question power, stir thought, and spark laughter. Because when the headlines are wild, the leaders are louder, and the truth is lost in translation, we all need a second take. Business First Africa is a forward-looking business show that goes beyond balance sheets to capture how Africans are building, creating, and living. Afrotech explores innovation, AI, and digital systems shaping the continent's economies. Brave and Building profiles Namibian entrepreneurs and businesses transforming industries and urban spaces. Creative Capital spotlights creatives and the creative economy, unpacking how culture becomes value. Africa in 10 delivers a sharp roundup of key developments across the continent. Don't miss Business First Africa, because it's not just business, it's life. Now, Africa is preparing for rising fuel and food prices as disruptions intensify in the Strait of Hormuz, a key global oil transit route partially blocked by the war in Iran. Ronald Mlalazi, president of the Africa Supply Chain Confederation, said the conflict has rapidly shifted from a geopolitical issue to a supply chain shock. He noted that roughly a quarter of global seaborne oil flows through the strait under normal conditions, but it is now militarized and unpredictable. Quoting the International Energy Agency, he said up to 30% of global oil flows are affected, with analysts discussing scenarios of $150 to $200 per barrel if disruption continues for 4 to 8 weeks. He warned that impact extends beyond oil to fertilizer, petrochemicals, plastics, and liquefied natural gas. Countries including Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Zambia are implementing emergency measures. Fertilizer prices have risen, with urea up 50%, threatening planting cycles and food prices. UNCTAD reported rising oil and gas transport costs, with freight rates up over 90%, compounding risks for trade as well as for food systems. Now, Staying with the same subject, Senegal has banned government ministers from all non-essential travel as rising global oil prices place pressure on public finances. Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko announced the measure at a youth rally, stating that the cost of a barrel of oil was approaching double what had been budgeted. He has postponed trips to Niger, Spain and France, with further spending controls expected from the mines minister. The move reflects broader continental responses, including reduced fuel levies and electricity rationing. Despite developing oil and gas resources, Senegal remains heavily reliant on fuel imports. Sonko said he aimed to give young people a realistic sense of global challenges while emphasizing resilience. The country's economy was described by the International Monetary Fund as robust, with growth near 8% and low inflation, but public debt exceeds 130% of GDP. Across Africa, South Africa has reduced fuel taxes, Ethiopia faces fuel shortages affecting institutions, South Sudan is rationing electricity, and Zimbabwe is increasing ethanol blending in petrol. Now, we swing over to Cameroon, where there was recently an election where Paul Biya, who has been in power for over 40 years, aged 93, got a victory of over 90%. New developments are this. Cameroon's vice presidency is now centered not just on constitutional reform, but on the immediate appointment of President Paul Biya's son, Franck Emmanuel Biya, to the post. Fresh reports say the appointment was made by presidential decree after Parliament approved the return of the office. The earlier constitutional amendment gave Biya the power to appoint and dismiss the vice president and provided that the office holder would automatically take over if the president dies, resigns, or becomes incapacitated. Cameroon's parliament passed the amendment by 200 votes to 18 with 4 abstentions. Franck Emmanuel Biya is also being reported as having been named head of armed forces, with some reports also saying he was appointed minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense. Reuters and AP confirmed the restoration of the vice presidency and the president's appointment powers, while newer regional reports say Biya has now used that power to appoint his son. And of course, all of this is on the backdrop of Cameroonians being rightfully concerned about their president, who is 93 years old and gradually waning in any form of political potency. Keeping in mind with leaders who have been in power over 40 years, there is a trend that has been observed over the decades. You're seeing Cameroonian president who fears his demise appointing his son to be vice president, as well as the head of the military, which is essential in centralizing the power in a country. Because then if you look at Uganda, the head of the military, Kaine Rugaba, is also the son of Yoweri Museveni, who has ruled for over 40 years. Let's move on to Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo has agreed to accept migrants deported from the United States who are not Congolese under a deal effective this month. Authorities say the temporary reception system has been established with facilities prepared in Kinshasa. The Ministry of Communications stated that logistical and technical support will be provided by the United States with no financial cost to the Congolese government. Officials did not specify how many deportees would be received. The arrangement includes third country migrants and aligns with commitments to human dignity and international solidarity. Authorities said the program is not a permanent relocation mechanism or outsourcing of migration policy. Now, the United States has deported individuals to several African countries as part of immigration measures. Concerns have been raised about potential returns to home countries, but officials said no such transfers are planned. DR Congo joins countries including Eswatini, Ghana, and South Sudan in receiving deportees, while the United States continues negotiations on broader regional agreements. And of course, the irony is rich in this particular situation, because on one end, you occasionally have U.S. embassies discouraging travel to some of these African countries, but when deportees need somewhere to go, they seem to be the first option. Now, we get into the last of our top stories. We swing over to Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traore, has declared that democracy is not suitable for the country, stating citizens should forget about the issue of democracy and describing it as divisive and dangerous. In a state television interview aired on April 2nd, the 36-year-old leader said the system was incompatible with the country's situation, particularly during the fight against jihadist insurgency. Traore, who seized power in a September 2022 coup, has reversed earlier commitments to restore civilian million rule by July 2024. In January 2026, the junta dissolved all political parties, transferred their assets to the state, and scrapped the Electoral Commission. The transition period has been extended by 5 years to July 2029, with elections postponed indefinitely until security conditions improve. Traore framed the shift as a progressive popular revolution focused on survival rather than elections, signaling a continued departure from multi-party governance structures within the country. Here is Burkina Faso's leader Ibrahim Traoré in his own words, with translation.
Doit se passer.
Excellence, les activités des partis politiques ont été suspendues et par la suite on a constaté leur dissolution. Alors quel message se cache derrière ces décisions?
Aucun message. La politique a pu faire quoi au Burkina? Pas grand-chose. Ça nous a divisés, ça c'est une réalité. Même dans des familles, deux frères qui appartiennent à deux partis, mais ils vont développer une haine sauvage, vous ne pouvez pas comprendre. Et ça, c'est dangereux. Et en termes de développement, vous savez que la politique, c'est comme une entreprise en africain. C'est-à-dire, vous êtes, moi je suis président d'un parti, je vous recrute, vous êtes de beaux parleurs, de beaux trompeurs. On flatte les gens, ils nous suivent. On a des opérateurs économiques à gauche et à droite qui nous aident à financer. Et vous partez corrompre les gens. Une fois que vous avez bien corrompu, si on gagne les élections, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire? Voler pour un retour sur investissement. Et ces opérateurs qui vous ont financé, vous n'avez pas le choix. Vous êtes obligé de les donner tous les marchés de l'État. Vous ne pouvez pas les faire payer la douane comme il faut. Vous ne pouvez pas faire payer les taxes comme il faut. Parce qu'ils ont besoin d'un retour sur investissement. C'est ça la réalité. Même nous, quand on est arrivé, il y a des opérateurs qui nous ont approchés aussi pour financer ou quelque chose. Nous ne sommes pas des politiciens. Si vous voulez donner l'argent, c'est ce qui nous a amené déjà à créer une commission de réception des dons, si vous vous souvenez. Après, les FSP maintenant. Parce qu'on cherchait l'argent, mais en même temps, on a dit, bon, comme vous en avez trop et que vous avez une sale habitude, donnez. On prenait et on pose le trésor dans un compte. Maintenant, si après, tu viens derrière pour dire, ah, bon, nous vous soutiens, il faut que j'ai mes camions à la douane, ah, ils ont dit ici ça, il faut nous aider à sortir. Généralement, c'est ce qui se passe. Ils vous expliquent même la méthode, parce qu'ils vous disent que vous êtes jeune, vous ne connaissez pas. Ça ne marche pas avec moi. Tu vas payer toute la douane, tu vas payer toutes tes taxes comme il faut. Si tu veux chanter, faire chanter quelqu'un parce que tu as soutenu ou quoi, c'est au trésor, ça aide les combattants. Donc c'est cette manière de faire la politique et tout. On a mis fin. Ça, il faut une nouvelle idéologie politique. Et il faut une formation avant qu'on parle de politique, à notre manière. Donc voilà pourquoi on a suspendu. Et après on a dissous. Mais eux-mêmes, ceux-mêmes qui faisaient la politique sont d'accord. La RPP, là, c'est pas d'autres personnes, ce sont les mêmes individus, mais je pense que les gens ont compris maintenant qu'ils étaient manipulés, ils étaient sur la fausse voie, et maintenant on est en train de reconstruire quelque chose de nouveau. Donc quelque part, ce n'est pas des individus qui ont quitté, ce sont les mêmes individus, mais je pense qu'il y a eu un déclic qui permet de repartir sur de nouvelles bases. Donc c'est dissous, les partis impérialistes, mais les hommes sont là, en train d'être reconstruits, à mesure de lancer la machine Burkina Faso.
An interesting perspective, which I guess Bekanabe people seem to relate to. However, in Namibia, we are a democracy, and it seems like Africa is branching out in different forms of leadership. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, we're going to be joined by Talent Gore from Harare as she delivers the Zimbabwe report. But prior to that, let's have a look at the weather.
This week's decisions, today's debates, tomorrow's consequences. The agenda puts the spotlight on Namibia's most pressing issues and the people driving them. From headline makers to groundbreakers, we bring you voices and perspectives at the center of the national conversation. One story, one interview, the depth you'll not find anywhere else. That is the agenda.
It's time for us to be joined by Talent Gore, who is in Harare, Zimbabwe, and she's here to deliver the Zimbabwe report. Talent Wamkase.
Mamkase Africa.
Tamuka Hedu. Now, Talent, Zimbabwe is introducing new ZiG banknotes, and that's from today.
Yes, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe will, starting from today, begin circulating a new series of upgraded ZiG banknotes. The Big Five ZiG banknote series, introduced under Statutory Instrument 37 of 2026, will enter circulation starting with the 10 ZiG and 20 ZiG denominations, alongside a newly issued 50 ZiG note. Higher denominations like the 100 ZiG and 200 ZiG will follow gradually, guided by transactional demand and prevailing monetary and financial conditions. Individuals will be able to withdraw up to 10,000 ZiG per week, while corporates will access up to 100 ZiG per week. The new notes will be available through banking halls, ATMs, and HomeLink kiosk. The Reserve Bank has also encouraged supermarkets, pharmacies, and hardware shops to offer ZiG cashback facilities and urged mobile money operators to resume cash in and cash out facilities in ZiG. Apparently, you find out that in Zimbabwe, if for mobile money operators, they were just accepting the United States dollars. So the Reserve Bank governor is encouraging mobile money operators to actually transact in ZiG notes and offer cash in and cash out services in the local currency. The old ZiG banknote series will continue to co-circulate with the new notes and will be phased out naturally as they are deposited into the banking systems. ZiG coins, which were introduced in April 2024, will also remain in circulation to support small value transactions, and the rollout of the new ZiG notes follows a ZiG educational and awareness campaign conducted by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe across the country. So starting today, we'll be seeing the newly ZiG note, which will be in circulation today. So I'm sure most of the people will be going to their banks to collect their monies. They will be to collect their monies in ZiG. Actually, they'll be getting the new ZiG notes. But as I've said, they will be co-circulating with the old notes, and the old notes will gradually be phased out as they are taken back into the banking system. So as of now, we are just going to be monitoring the situation in town to see if people are getting their new ZiG banknotes.
All right, Talent. Now, Zimbabwe is and has raised fuel prices yet again. And of course, this is with regards to global oil pressures. But I was looking at the speech by Tendai Biti, one of the opposition leaders, lawyer, advocate, former finance minister, where he actually blames the government for the hiking of these fuel prices. And it feels like someone's trying to pocket something on the side. What's your take?
So that is the take of everyone right now in Zimbabwe, because you find out that the fuel hikes, or the fuel prices rather, you find out that most of the money there right now, we are being people are now paying $2.23 per liter, but you find out that most of that money is being taxed. There are taxes. So just recently, just last Thursday, the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority announced another shock fuel price increase just when motorists had been promised relief at the pumps. Diesel goes up to $2.11 from $2.05 per liter, while the new petrol price was set at $2.23 from $2.17 per liter. Fuel stations outside Harare and Mutare can expect to pay up to 10 cents more after factoring in transport costs. The government sharply raised fuel prices last month after the Iran war interrupted a global supply, but with other countries in the region removing government taxes to keep fuel prices in check. Officials had undertaken to carry out a similar review. Finance Minister Mthuli raised hopes when he posted a statement on his X account at 9:14 p.m. on Thursday, announcing the suspension of all government taxes on diesel amounting to 56 cents per liter. And 10 minutes later, the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority announced that fuel prices were going up, including diesel. Zera said the government was keeping the price of diesel lower than it ought to be, and fuel was selling for $1.56 of petrol and $1.52 per liter for diesel before the United States and Israel began their bombardment of Iran on February 28. So as of now, for diesel, people are paying $2.17, and for petrol, it's at $2.23. In as much as Professor Mthuli, who is the finance minister, had said that they are going to remove some taxes to ensure that the fuel prices is kept in check. Just minutes later, Zera announced a sharp increase, which left everyone shocked. But in that regard, you find out that most of that money is for taxes. So you find out that for each liter, there is a certain amount, about 50, or rather 40 to 50% of that is going to taxes, which citizens are saying it's not fair that the government is taxing us that much when other countries within the region, they're actually lowering or rather removing those taxes to those taxes on fuel to ease that burden on their fuel prices.
All right, Talent. Sadly, we must end on a very, very sad note. Talk to us about the head-on collision that happened in Mvuma heading into Easter.
Yes, it's quite a sad situation. A family of 6, which included a mother and her 5 children, perished in a head-on collision along the Harare-Masvingo road on Thursday morning as the nation prepared for the Easter holidays. Linda Mujuru, who was 40, and her children, Noctenda 15, Makanaka 13, Ronald 11, Rufaro 7, and Caden 3, all of Norton of Tinwood North Harare, died when the Toyota Corolla they were traveling in collided head-on with a Mercedes-Benz truck at the 246-kilometer peg near Mvuma at around 9:50 a.m. The family had left their Tinwood North home for a church conference, and Ronald Njuru, as you can see in the picture, who is the father of the 5 children, had been waiting for a call confirming that his family had arrived safely when the police told him about the tragedy. A mass burial for the 5 children and their mother was held on Sunday in Chivu, on Easter Sunday, which was Easter Sunday. And the First Lady, Amai Auxilia Mnangagwa, has also sent her condolence messages to the family because it is quite a devastating it's a tragedy, rather. The father of the 5 children and also husband is now left alone, and you find government officials, the nation at large, went in and paid their tributes to the family, and also their condolences to Ronald Mujuru, who is now who actually lost his 5 children and wife.
Thank you very much, Talent, for delivering a very honest Zimbabwe report.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's always good to have you on Africa Good Morning. That's been our show on DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com, Network Media Hub, and NTV Africa on YouTube, as well as ntvafrica.my.na. Keep in mind that Africa is spelled with a K. My name is Ashwin Beri. Tomorrow we return with Rorisang Mokojwe as she delivers the Botswana report from Gaborone. And as always, we bring you top stories from across the continent. Sweda Zakanaka.